Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jane Hewitt and I'm the Capability Building Coordinator at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand are part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. And for those of you who haven't attended a webinar with us before, TechSoup and Connecting Up facilitate an annual training calendar of online webinars, workshops, boot camps and webcons to help the social sector upskill in all things digital. And you can check out the calendar of online events coming up for the rest of the year on both of those websites. So today, welcome to the webinar, How to Produce an Action-Built Website with Saoirse Rochford from NationBuilder. And just before we begin, we'll start with a bit of housekeeping today. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical questions, please type them into the questions box and I should be able to assist. And likewise, if you have any questions at all during the session, type those into the questions box on your GoToWebinar panel and we'll be having a Q&A coming up at the end of today's webinar. And please note that this webinar is being recorded and you'll receive a copy of the slides and the recording towards the end of the day. And just before we start, I'd like to remind everybody that we do have a little short survey that pops up at the end of the webinar, and we'd really appreciate any feedback. So that's all from me. I will pass over to Saoirse to get things started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jane, and thank you everyone for coming to today's session. So like Jane said, my name is Saoirse and I work for NationBuilder. I've been with the company now for about 7 years. And NationBuilder is a software company and we're based out in Los Angeles. Right now, I head up our strategic partnerships where I get to work with amazing people like Jane and the whole Connecting Up crew and focus really intentionally on our nonprofit customers and people who are in that not-for-profit sector that are trying to kind of get a real grasp on what it means to organize digitally and how to do that with kind of some best-in-class tools. So what is NationBuilder? NationBuilder is leadership software. It is leadership software with an operating system designed to help you move supporters to action towards whatever your shared goal is. And in our software, you have the ability to create a website, engage with your community or your data through our CRM, broadcast to that community via email, and also you have the ability to fundraise. All of that powered together gives you this fully integrated software that allows you to get a 360 profile of the individual people, and more importantly, actually reflect data back to them about what their journey has been with your organization. We were founded by organizers for organizers, and we were created with the belief that everyone has the right and opportunity to lead and build what they were meant to build. So what does that look like from a product principle perspective? Up first is owning your own data. Within NationBuilder, your data is yours. Your data is safe. You can access it, build into it, and take it with you at any time. We also want you to put people at the center. What do we mean by that? What is finding your people, identifying the folks who are engaging with you, and the best way for you to then engage with them, personalizing that outreach, and then ultimately finding the people who are doing the organic work on your behalf. Up next is moving people to action. So this is a kind of a concept around, in particular, thinking about like, don't just build lists, right? Spreadsheets and spreadsheets of data is not going to get you to build the action or change the movement in the way that you want to. Developing supporters with actual paths and goals in mind. And in today's session, we're really going to focus on that website and the idea of building an action-driven website, right? How do you produce that? That's all about the people who are going to be visiting that website. So thinking about your supporter journeys, what goals do you want those people to achieve, and how is that going to ultimately impact your mission? In doing that, you want to use your website for action, right? So again, thinking about this moving people to action. Why am I going to come to a beautiful billboard when I could actually go and take action? Also thinking about how do I automate some of this work, right? We don't want people doing unnecessary work, administrational work. The premise built into our software orients around being able to automate processes that normally would take a lot of human power. Meeting people where they're at. This is key when you are thinking about building out an action purpose website, right? You really want to be able to make sure that if someone is coming to your website for the first time, that they are getting an understanding of who you are, what your organization does, and the ways in which they can engage. It's all about meeting people where they're at. And last but definitely not least is the ability to distribute leadership. So think about things like being able to equip any of your leaders or any of the supporters or volunteers or donors in your community that have taken specific types of action. You can render them certain types of content based on how they've engaged with you historically. You want to be able to incentivize peer engagement, right? Running peer-to-peer fundraising programs, looking at how folks can, organically recruit their friends and family. And last but not least, and kind of feeds in from that, is this idea of building networks, allowing your supporters to have agency with the work that you are doing in a digital capacity. And so with that, that's kind of the overarching what NationBuilder is in a very quick overview. We did a session a couple of weeks back, which gives you kind of a full rundown of the software. But today we're really going to be focusing in on the website. So within the software, you have the ability to create an event, a survey, a pledge, a petition, donation pages, just to name a few. And our website platform is actually unique in that every page actually has an associated action with it. While a beautiful website is lovely to look at, it's vital that you've got clear actions on your websites for your supporters to engage with you digitally. You want to make sure that they're able to share how they've actually engaged with your organization. This is going to empower them to recruit friends and family without you even having to ask. When someone actually takes that first action, though, it is key to put them on a journey for the other actions you need them to take in order to achieve your mission. That requires you have a clear sense of what you want your supporters to do. And if you don't have a constant need for supporters to take action, think about shifting your focus to pure community engagement. So thinking about user-generated content for the ability for people to be able to organically share content or educational content that you're providing, right? It doesn't always have to be about action, but when you're, competing with a lot of different attention spans that people are being pulled towards right now, what we're seeing is that action actually increases engagement level. The other piece here is personalization. It is an extremely important component to all of this. But even more important than that is the follow-up that comes with someone taking an action. You want to be able to reflect back to your supporters, your donors, your volunteers. How have they helped you? How have they helped your organization progress? What does it look like when they donate their time or their money to your efforts? From that, you are then able to actually put people at the center of the work you're doing. So, what do we do to get there? Up first, we want to think about a user journey, right? And here we have kind of 6 very basic outlines of what a user journey should encompass. So number 1 is creating a persona for your ideal supporter. When you're building a website, you need to have a persona or multiple personas in mind of the people you want to attract. Let's say you are an organization that is, that is fighting hunger. You're going to look for and understand who are the people that are most likely to take the action that you want. From there, you're going to create a persona or multiple personas of the person that you believe is the ideal individual to take the action you want them to take. From there, you're going to identify your voice. And when I say identify your voice, I don't mean, specifically what do you sound like. What I'm talking about here is what's the tone of your organization from a digital perspective. And I'm sure that some of the folks who are on the call today maybe already have websites. But when I'm talking about your voice, I'm talking about having a tone and having a voice that people can instantly recognize. Oh, I know that content is this particular brand, right? That is all about your digital assets. And you want to make sure that you've got that voice nailed down, and that voice is going to trickle through to your digital assets, from social media graphics to images you're using on the website, to illustrations you might have, to the words written on your website, from the big header, the big splasher header, to all of those like individual little paragraphs that folks are reading into. Then coming into the idea of creating the actions that you want supporters to take. That can be as simple as signing up for a newsletter. It could be creating donation infrastructure, could be getting petitions, events, endorsement pages, you name it, surveys, right? But you as an organization need to have an idea of what the actions are that you want people to take. And then within that, being able to create a hierarchy. So for example, if someone signs up to join your newsletter, that might not be a sign that this person is extremely engaged with the content or what your organization is doing. But if someone signs up for a newsletter, RSVPs for 4 events, signs 2 petitions, and recruits 12 people, that person is highly engaged. And so you want to be able to track and create action paths for folks to actually, go down that ladder of engagement with your organization. From that, building out dynamic journeys based on the actions that your supporters take. So again, let's think back to the actions we've set. Someone signs up to volunteer. We then want them to sign the petition. We then want them to make a donation. That's a very basic example of a digital user journey that you would set up as an organization, and an end user would just experience that, right? There isn't like a cognitive overhead for an end user with this. This is all on your organization to come up with, what are these journeys? What are the dynamic journeys that we want people to go on based on the actions that they've taken historically? From that, you want to prompt people to share it. The best type of referral, the best type of recruiter that you're going to get is from a referral from someone who's already engaging with your content and actively participating in your organization's mission. There are a number of ways you can do that. You can think about earned media, you can look at paid media, you can look at paid campaigns, but the best way to do it is that in that moment of action, when someone is doing something on your website, asking that person to share it with their friends and family. And last but absolutely not least, follow-up. Follow-up is key. We are living in a 24-hour news cycle. We have been for many, many years. Attention spans are hard to keep. So when you are, someone goes in, they're scrolling through Instagram and they click on an ad, and all of a sudden they've taken a petition. If you don't follow up with that person, the likelihood of them continuing to engage with your organization is slim to none. You have to be able to engage with people in the moment at which they've taken action through auto responses, but also through a timed journey based on the action that they've taken. And we're going to talk more about that in the demonstration. Okay, so that's kind of high level overview of a user journey, these 6 key points that I want y'all to keep thinking about as we go throughout today's session. Here's an example of that. Right, so up first here, I've identified that the persona for me is a woman women that live in Sydney, that are over the age of 40, that care about bikes. From there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build an ad for that audience to drive them to my petition page, right? So I know who the audience is. I'm now going to either do a Google ad or a Facebook ad or a Twitter ad and target this specific audience to my petition page. Once they've signed my petition page, it's automatically going to land them on the volunteer page. Then from there, it's going to automatically send them to a donation page, which will then prompt them at the end of that journey to share with friends and family. Then from that, they will receive an automatic email that says, thank you so much for your donation. And then 3 days later, they will receive an email that takes them on another journey that you've identified. This isn't just one and done. There isn't just one user journey that you're going to have. There should be multiple user journeys based on different levels of engagement that you set with what you want your audience to do. So think of this as like living and breathing. As your organization expands, as you develop further missions that you want to engage with, as your goals and priorities change, your user journey shouldn't be stagnant. The days of old, outdated content are long gone. We need to be able to be agile and rapid with the types of digital assets that people have access to when they're engaging. So that leads me into, how do you do this, right? What does it actually look like to build out a program like this? So up first, we are going to talk about action pages. And so, like I said at the top, NationBuilder's website is unique in that all of our pages, when you build a website with NationBuilder, are designed specifically with that action in mind. So in that, you have 3 very specific things that allow that automation and the kind of like data work to happen without you having to think about it. So at first, we have action chains. That is me saying, I've signed up on my petition page, now I'm on my volunteer page, now I'm on my donation page. Tags point people in paths. We're going to talk about that once I get into the demonstration. Best way to think about that is data. When someone submits the form on your website, you're able to basically categorize that data as it comes in. Lastly is that auto response email. So again, the instant that they take action, they receive a confirmation from you, similar to the e-commerce model. But when you think about this in a community engagement capacity and an organizing capacity, it's really, really powerful. Adding content. Within NationBuilder's platform, whenever you're adding content, we have what you call a WYSIWYG. What that stands for is what you see is what you get. Very simple. What you're putting into the control panel or the back end of NationBuilder is what you're going to get on the front-facing site. We also have an integration with Embedly where you can just pop in a URL and automatically a video will embed. Lastly, we have this concept of page attachments. I find this to be extremely common in the nonprofit space where there are either, fundraising requests or white papers that you want to attach to pages that people can download, and you can actually track for that. So you can do that through page attachments. And then lastly is this idea of subpages. So distinct from that user journey, this is more about thinking about how do I nest action pages? When I am thinking about what my user journey is going to be, I want the website to make sense, right? So thinking about how do you want to actually architect it? Do you have a blog post for multiple issues that you have because you have so much content for specific issue streams that your organization cares about? Or do you just have one blog, right, that holds all of your content streams? Same is true for events. If you're a larger organization and you're operating all over the country or maybe on a global scale, you might have multiple events for multiple countries. Or if you're local, but you've got, mass support, you might want to do it on a neighborhood basis, right? Thinking about how you can kind of nest pages to make the architecture of your website make sense to anyone who is interacting with it. Up next is the look and feel. So this is your skin, right? This is like what the website looks like to interact with. Everything we've talking about up until this point is strategy. It's how you get folks to engage, it's why you want them to engage, and it's how you want them to engage. But when you think about just the kind of baseline look and feel, what we call that at NationBuilder is themes. We have 3 different options. We have stock themes, which are kind of just out of the box. You take it as is. You can change some colors, you can add your logo, but the whole kind of look and feel is set for you. We have custom themes where you can work with a website developer who can build out a bespoke and custom theme for you. And then we have a theme marketplace where we have, a number of website developers that have built out themes on the NationBuilder platform that they can sell at scale to, hundreds and thousands of customers that are looking to kind of get a refresh on their current website just from a look and feel perspective, not from a content perspective. So let's kind of hone in a little bit on specifically SEO. Sorry, there's a typo here on the page. That should say SEO, not action pages. And I bring SEO up here because it's a really important thing for you to think about when you are setting up that user journey. Because not every single time, maybe you won't have the money to afford to do a big ad spend. And so how do you actually, build your rankings on search engines? So SEO stands for search engine optimization. And within your nation, it can be updated on a page by page basis. It's really important to name that because if you have thousands of pages, all of the kind of like keywords within this, so your headline, your excerpt, your title, those are automatically being scraped by search engines so that they can get results. If you do not go in and like make those changes and make those edits, you're going to be put into search results that you may not want to. And so it's really important to kind of start to think about an SEO strategy as it pertains to your action website, right? You want to think about what are the keywords that people will type or that you want people to type into a Google or a Yahoo when they're trying to find your organization. Are there specific keywords that are relevant for certain times of year? Is there a specific kind of stream that you want for donation pages to be able to get kind of lifted up in those search responses? The last thing here is that idea of increasing your placement. So when you're thinking about increasing your placement, you really want to be thinking about how do I get the really key language into the excerpt? It doesn't need to be 700 words, just a couple of sentences, but it has to be key language. That will then allow for you to organically climb up in those search results, ultimately driving more eyeballs to what your organization is trying to do. So up next is this idea of sharing. So what you're seeing here is what we call a social share prompt. And on every page, you have the opportunity to prompt people to share about what they just did, what action they just took on your website with their social media account. What you're seeing on the right-hand side is the image of what that looks like. And the real power here is that when someone shares this to their social media accounts, it automatically will give them credit for having recruited anyone to your nation. And when I go through the demo now in a couple of minutes, you'll see exactly what that looks like. The other thing to note on this is that language there where it says, I just made a donation, you should join me. That's completely customizable. So you can customize it and put a default message in there. Your users can customize it and update it to be in their own tone, their own voice, because people actually respond better when they know individuals who are sharing content that is theirs. And last but not least, before I head into the demo, is the concept that we talked about of dynamic follow-up. You always want to automatically send an email to a supporter instantaneously from them taking an action. It's going to help you increase engagement. From there, you want to be able to create welcome series or email automations. There's 100 different names for it. But the nuts and bolts of that are they take an action. They receive an auto response. You wait a certain period of time. They receive another email. You wait another certain period of time. They receive another email. And then within that, the power here of the integrated platform of NationBuilder is that you can render dynamic content to them based on their previous engagement with your organization that will, as we have seen at NationBuilder, drive engagement and drive like your ultimate goals, right, with your calls to action in emails by up to 27% is what we have seen for folks who are using dynamic content in emails. It's extremely powerful to be able to say, hey, 3 weeks ago, you took an action on our petition, and because of your action, we have done X. That's the type of power and personalization that you can get when you're thinking about what is my user journey? How do I understand my data, and how do I render it back to the people that I want or need to actually take action? Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead into the demo portion, and I am going to go jump out of this, and we are going to start at first with the front-facing site. So this is a demo nation, so I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to take an action on a petition. So I'm on a NationBuilder website. This is a stock theme, so this is just out of the box. I've added a logo, I've added some content and some images, but all of the rest of this just like default happens when you are interacting with building out your nation or your website on NationBuilder. And so it's really important to name that when we're talking about action pages, I am talking specifically about everything that can be just kind of popped out of the box based on what your needs are. So the page that we have landed on right here is a petition page. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take an action on this page. So I'm going to sign, my name is Homer Simpson at example.com. My number is 1234 678 909. Great. I am in Australia. There we are. And my address is, I'm going to grab, here we are. Oh, sorry, my computer is being a little slow. Oh, we're having a lot of thunderstorms here today, and so it is a little bit slower than I would like, but all good. Okay, so my address, I just grab here. I'm going to pop this in, and we are off to the races. Okay, so I filled out my form, and down here I've got a couple of options. So I can say I want to receive email, text, or I want to volunteer. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my signature to this page. And immediately what you're seeing is that I'm prompted to share it with my friends and family, right? So I now have the option to send this to my friends in an email, to share it on Facebook, to share it on Twitter, or to share it on WhatsApp. If I went through this process, it would take me into the application, and then I would be able to post that out. I'm going to go ahead and say no thanks right now. And I am now coming in and I'm seeing a couple of unique things. The first is that I am Homer Simpson, right? So I've taken that action. The website is now acknowledging who I am. And I am logged in. So it's saying, if you're not Homer Simpson, you can sign out here. I'm going to select that I am going to do a couple of these things. I'm available at 2 p.m. on Sunday and Saturday. And you'll notice also that my address information is also pre-populated because I've just entered that on the previous form. So now I'm going to save my volunteer info. And again, I'm going to be prompted to share that, right? So again, I can say, okay, it says up top, thank you, someone's going to be in touch with you soon. Now share what you're doing with others to increase your impact. Again, I'm going to go ahead and say no thanks. And the end of my user journey, so if we think back to the very first slide, is a thank you page. I have just been given a thank you. I've gone through that user journey. So now from here, we're going to go into the control panel, right? The back end of NationBuilder to see how all of this kind of works. So I am going to jump in here. So this is the back end, the control panel of NationBuilder. Every time you log in, you are going to see what we call the dashboard. That's giving you an overview of everything that's happening in your nation. You're also getting to see here some goals, right? What are the goals that your organization has set? So I'm going to jump straight into the activity stream. And we are going to see that Homer Simpson has a bunch of activity, right? So what we're seeing here is Homer is a supporter. Erica is the point person for Homer. Homer signed up on a specific petition, started a path, wants to volunteer. All of these individual data points have come from that action you just saw me taking on the front-facing site. So now I'm going to go into Homer's individual profile because by him filling out a form, immediately a record was created for him in the control panel. So up first, we're seeing the basic information that Homer provided to us. So we get Homer's name, the address, the mobile number, the email address that he provided, and we also get a couple of NationBuilder specific things. Up first is this idea of a point person. A point person, the best way to think about this is to delegate responsibility. So Erica is actually responsible for anyone who signs up to be a volunteer. So what happens here is Erica will get an email notification to say, hey, new volunteers signed up. Make sure you do outreach to them, right? That's the workflow management of your action-oriented website. The other thing here that you're seeing is if we think back to that action page slide when I talked about tags and point people, this is how a tag automatically was appended to Homer's profile. So some of you might be asking, what the heck is a tag? A tag, the best way to think about it, it's a virtual sticky note. You can stick it on, you can rip it off. That happened just by Homer checking the boxes to say the different types of volunteer activities that he would like to participate in. If we scroll down here, we're also seeing a user journey translated into what we call a path, right? A ladder of engagement. How do I get someone from A to B? What's the user journey I want them to go on from a digital perspective? Within this, we have a couple of things. So I'm going to use the become a volunteer path as the example. So up first here, we have a number of steps, right? So this is how is this individual going from being a potential volunteer all the way from actually having a proposed volunteer date for him to engage with the organization. And these are steps that you as the control panel user or the owner of your nation can move Homer along manually, or by Homer taking action on the front-facing site, he can move himself, right? So he can go from having signed up to volunteer to filling out a form where he confirms his suitability for the role. All of this can be triggered. So when I was saying to you earlier, right, think about what those dynamic journeys are that you want your users to go on. It's all tied to how you then want that to be managed when you're looking at these folks on an individual level. This also works at scale, right? Right now, we're just looking at Homer Simpson, but within the platform, you have the ability to do this at scale and identify people who look like Homer Simpson that are in your database. A really key thing for everyone to take away from today is NationBuilder is the infrastructure, right? So we aren't giving you any data. This is all based on these people opting in to want to be a part of your community, and you then doing the relationship building with them to take them on those user journeys. So now I'm going to scroll down here, and similar to the entire nation stream that we saw, there is an individual activity stream for each person and how they've engaged with your organization. And for the purpose of today's session, we're actually going to go into the website area. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to click on the future of school library funding. And that is going to bring me into the page that you guys saw from the front-facing site. And I just want to show you how I set up all of the automatic triggers that just happened. So I'm going to jump in here to my petition page. And I am going to go over into the basics area. And in here is where you are able to configure what happens when someone inputs their data on that form. So up first, there's some basic information. Do you want them to submit a photograph? Do you want them to submit a phone number? Are either of those things required? Do you want their address information? Is it required? Do you want them to volunteer? Right here, this is where you set up what's the next action you want them to take. So what's the next website page you want them to go to when they take that first action? In this example, I have set it up to be the volunteer page. And now down here, we have all of the automatic actions that happen to the end user. So here is the tag that this individual gets assigned to their profile. Here is the point person that you can pick from. So these are all people that would actually have access to your control panel, to the back end, right? So staff, super volunteers that you are trusting of having access to your data and your website and your email and your fundraising, for example. Then down here is where you would configure the ability to add someone to a path. So we can say, I want them to be on our Become a Donor path, actually. And I want them to be on the Ask to Pledge step. This is where that customization of what the user journey you need for your organization really comes in. The last thing I want to show you in this is this ability here with the auto response. So immediately when Homer Simpson took this action, he received this email. This email that said, thank you for signing up. Please forward this email to others who may want to sign. So not only have we prompted his social share prompt, we've also asked him immediately in email to share this with friends and family. Those are all the ways that you could automatically trigger actions to take place in your nation. The last thing I want to show you in today's session before we go into our Q&A is the way in which you can follow up, right? That dynamic follow-up that we had talked about. So the first of that is the auto response. But if I come over here into the workflows area, what you're going to see is the ability to create a workflow. So I'm going to jump into this and create a new automation. This is going to be called my petition signers. And this is the petition signers to donors. Awesome. So immediately I am prompted to say, who is this for? Who's the audience of this email automation? So I'm going to choose my source and I am going to say I want it to be a page and I want it to be my petition page, and it's that future of school library funding. Immediately I'm prompted to say this page sends an auto response. You are also able to suppress people from this. So for example, this is very commonly used if you have, high dollar donors in your audience who might take this action. They might take the petition that you're sending out or that you're putting on social media to amplify, but they're already a donor. So they don't need to come through this email that you are getting up. So I'm going to suppress anyone who's already a donor for 2020. I'm going to hit continue. And then immediately I'm showing here, this is starting with anyone who takes this action. They get an auto response. And now I'm going to add a time delay. So I'm going to say I want to wait 4 days before I then communicate with them again. And this is where I can actually start to create that follow-up, right? That really important moment of you've taken the action and now how am I going to engage with you? So up first, I want to choose my voice, right? Who's this going out on behalf of? I'm going to send it from Alex, who's our volunteer coordinator. And this is going to be email 123. And I'm going to save and continue. And I'm prompted here to say, what's the subject line? So I'm going to say, thank you for making the pledge. And we are going to save our settings and move into the theme. So that's the look and feel that we talked about with the website. Same premise is true for when you're sending out that follow-up. I'm going to go here with basic with a logo, nothing fancy. And I'm going to move into my content. So in here, we have what we talked about earlier with that WYSIWYG, right? So what you see is what you get. But where the real power comes in here is the ability to reflect back to the individual how they've engaged with you historically. So this is our first email in follow-up. So we don't, want to make a really hard ask of them. We want to say, thank you for signing the petition. We couldn't do it without your help. We need you to share the petition with your friends and family. Okay, so I'm just going to grab this URL as an example. And if you can recruit 5 people, we will send you a sticker, right? We're trying to incentivize people to take additional action. So the first thing we are going to do here is we are going to say, share this link with your family, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hyperlink here. And great, we've added that URL. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add what we call a smart field. And a smart field is a way in which that you can get data that you know about the individual reflected back to them in the email. So I want them to share this with their friends and family. And I want to let them know that they are, there we go. Awesome. So now we've added their recruiter code to the end of that URL. So I'm going to save and update my preview. And what you'll see right here is they now have a unique URL that they can share, and they're going to get credit. This is going to be dynamic for every single person that this email is being sent to. That's the really key to this, right? If I wanted to as well, I could add in here, I could go ahead and I could put in some address data in here. I could identify specific things about an individual's donation history, such as total donations year to date, amount that you've pledged versus the amount that you've actually donated, right? You can get really creative with this strategy, all tied to the user journey that you set forth when you are building out your action-oriented website. So now I'm going to go over and I'm going to save and continue. And last but not least here, we just get to review that. Great, everything looks good. And I'm going to save my automation. The process then continues. I can go in, I can add a time delay again. I'm going to say I'll wait 4 days. And then again, I can add another email. And that is how you would create a unique and dynamic journey for follow-up to get folks to come right back through that circle of a user journey that you've identified for your organization. And so with that, we have about 20 minutes for questions. So I would love to hear from the audience. So yeah, Jane, I will throw it to you if there are any questions.
Lovely, thank you, Saoirse. Nothing coming in at the moment, but please do get your questions in, just anything you'd like to know. And as I said before, you'll be getting a copy of the recording and the slides towards the end of today. But if anybody has any questions, if they've used the platform before, or if they're thinking, could you just run us through the pricing again, just in case anybody doesn't know?
Absolutely, yeah. So NationBuilder and Connecting Up have a partnership. There's a lot of details of that on, I know, our page within Connecting Up, but it is a 40% discount on our NationBuilder Pro plan, I believe. But I'll make sure, Jane, to get you that information so you can put it in a follow-up email if that's helpful.
Perfect, thank you. Everybody's being very quiet today,
Oh,
but that's fine. Oh, hold on a second. We have one question from Vanessa. In terms of accessibility, how does NationBuilder handle screen readers?
That is a great question that I do not know the answer to. And so I will, Jane, I'll follow up with you.
Cool. Okay, Vanessa, we will, if you just want to drop me your email there, Vanessa, I can get Saoirse to answer that question for you, and I'll send it along with the slides later on today.
Awesome,
or tomorrow.
Thank you.
No more questions at the moment, but thank you very much. That was great. Right, I've got Vanessa's email now, so I'll just jot that down. Perfect.
Awesome. Well, if anyone has any questions that come up after the webinar or when you get to look at the slides yourself, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to jump on and have a conversation with you.
Hold on just 1 second. Somebody says they're just typing. Just give them a couple of seconds. Okay, an e-commerce. Somebody's just posted e-commerce connection. Doug, would you mind explaining that a little bit, or just expanding on that? I'm not sure what you mean. Jessica is saying thank you for the insightful webinar. We're just waiting for a question from Patricia, who is just typing out something at the moment. Here we go. Thanks, that was great. Realised how static our website is. This looks easy to use. It's very easy for those without high-level skills to use. Mary is asking, do you need a lot of IT support, I guess, to set it up?
No, and that's actually something we've got the time, so if folks are interested, I will show you. So, well, two things. So we have full documentation, resources, guides, all of the things, but it really is very easy. So if I want to go ahead, I can actually start an entire brand new website. And what that will look like, I'm going to go here, I'm going to hit new website, and I'm going to call this Connecting Up. Awesome. We'll just grab here, and I am going to launch my site. So NationBuilder gives you this infrastructure, right? So when you create a website, what we will do is we will default give you a bunch of pages that you can actually decide whether or not you want to use. So you can see here that I've created my Connecting Up website. And if I now went to the live site to see what that looked like, this is what I would get just by literally typing in the words I just did. So you'll see it's very similar to the theme, the look and feel of the demonstration website, because I use one of those stock themes. But everything is here, right? It's all in there, and there's some basic pages that we give with each of our stock themes, so that you can kind of get a feel for what those would look like. And let's say you wanted to create a new page. I will bring you in here. So I'm going to call this my CU petition. And here we have our like most common page types. So you've got your basic page, which is just for kind of like rich content heavy, a blog post page, a calendar, a donation, event, petition, sign up, etc. And then if I click here to show all pages, you're going to see all of our, I think it's 36 page types that we have, with a specific little like description of what this intended page and action is for. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that petition page. I am going to say it's published. I'm living on the edge here. And I'm also going to include it in my top nav. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to just write some words. I'm literally going to write words. And then my petition text is, we need you today. Very enticing words, as you can see. Save my petition. And the really important part here is how you're going to configure the data, right? So when someone ingests data, when someone puts their information in. I'm going to leave this. I don't want the phone number or an address. I don't even want volunteers, but I do want to make sure that after they sign up, they go to our contact form. So again, starting that journey. So I want my contact form, awesome. And then here they are going to be a petition signer, and not for whiskey, but for connecting up. We're going to have a point person assigned to them. So we're going to have Erica again, and we're going to add them to that path. So I'm going to say that they're going to become a movement ambassador from this. And their step is that they've signed up on the site, and we will save our settings. Again, we could check that auto response if we wanted. The default that you'll get is there, but if you wanted to change that, you can. I'm going to make a very slight change with an exclamation point. And then the last thing you want to do is twofold. First is that SEO that we talked about, right? So we want to go in and we want to make sure that the SEO is there based on your keywords. So this would be connecting up and NationBuilder partner for non-profits. Right? Very, these are the keywords. I want people to, look for those words when they're thinking about my organization. I'm going to save my SEO. And the last thing I'll configure is the social media. So here, I'm going to prompt for posting when someone takes the action. I'm going to make sure that it says sign the petition with the name of the petition. And then I can add an image right here if I want. So that thumbnail image that would pop up when you are doing, when they would share it on Facebook or on Twitter. And I'm going to save my social media settings. And in those 4 minutes, this is what our page looks like. So this is where I wrote words. We need you today. Nothing particularly fancy, as you can see, because I don't have a lot of content in there. And so that's what it looks like to create a page. It really is very user-friendly. I am not someone who codes or anything like that, and I can spin up web pages. The last thing I will show you is the way that you can change the look and feel that we talked about. So that lives over here in theme. And so if you jump into the theme, you have all of the options here of the different look and feel. And then down here, you can go to that theme marketplace I talked about, or you could actually hire a professional to build out a site. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change my theme to, let's say, City Zen. And I can pick the color I want. I'm going to go for nature. And now if I refresh this page, oh, have that saved? Yeah, that's saved now. Now if I refresh, what we'll see is all of the content is still there, but we have a brand new look and feel. So yeah.
Lovely. We have a few people asking similar questions along the lines of, if you have a current website, can you transfer it over? Do you need to start from scratch? And also, how do you integrate it or connect it to an existing website?
Yes. So that's really common. We have a lot of customers that will use a subdomain. So they will have their larger website, we'll call it, or organizational website that exists on maybe a WordPress or a Squarespace. And then they will have any of their action pages. So contact form, a feedback, a survey, a petition, an event, a donation connected to a NationBuilder website that would have a similar look and feel to their current site. And they would use a subdomain to connect that. That's the most common. So you would just have like this link right here for CU petition would link to another site, but from an end user perspective, it's a subdomain. So what that would look like, it would be, let's say your website is boston.com. It would be action.boston.com. And that's how most of our customers do that. We do have a lot of customers that do a full transition. I will not lie, it is not easy to do a full transition. So if you are going to embark on that, I would definitely recommend like talking with our team if that's something you want to explore. We have a couple of like professional services that we can kind of go through, or porting over, you know, historical blog posts, things like that. So yeah, there's a couple of different options, but the most common is that subdomain option.
Cool. Jason is just asking for donations, payments. Can we integrate current accounts, e.g. PayPal, Stripe? Also, what kind of reporting features can it generate?
Yes, so two things on that. We have, so NationBuilder has its own payment processor that is run, the hood of it is Stripe. And so you will see here that we actually have some pretty very competitive rates when it comes to processing payments. So there is that. And then in terms of bringing in, you absolutely can have your normal PayPal button and link through. From a reporting perspective, there's a bunch. So over in this section, and next week we have the fundraising webinar. So if you are interested in that, please do come, because we'll talk about reporting in that. But there's a bunch of different reporting. So in this view out that you're looking is like transaction line items. You can filter, right, for specific criteria. So if you're looking for, you know, quarter to quarter report outs, you're looking at, you know, financial types, whether it was check, cash, if it's a reoccurring payment. There's a lot of reporting in the financials. And then from an individual perspective or people data perspective, same kind of flow. You have, you know, a lot of reporting in here as well as it pertains to, we have over 300 different criteria sets that you can kind of create saved filters of, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time, right? So you would go in, you would say, you want to say everyone that is within 50 miles of Sydney and has RSVP'd for a specific event that we have, the community fair, and has also opened an email blast from Erin in the last, let's say, 30 days, or they have oh, sorry, went the wrong way, or they have donated, right? So that's just an example of some of the breadth of the reporting that you can do. And then in the dashboard area, you have a number of different options for reporting. So looking at your growth view, so understanding specifically what growth trajectory looks like. This is also a dummy nation, so there's not a lot of data in here, but this will give you based on these different categories of where you're tracking for. So yeah, there's a bunch of different reporting options.
Great. Jessica's saying, is there a possibility of having a client portal, i.e. for a client or customer to upload documents?
Client portals of clients and customers. I think what you're asking is, does NationBuilder have the ability to store outside documents that, no. So NationBuilder isn't a file storage platform. We have a CRM, CMS, broadcasting abilities via email, and fundraising abilities. The page attachment is for you as the organization to hold, like if you want to upload a file that someone could download, that is a thing you could do. But NationBuilder cannot ingest files and store them in the individual records. Like if we come back to that individual record, there is a lot of information that we store, but we don't have the ability to have basically, like you would need down here like a files tab where you would store information. That's not something that we have. We do have customers though that have, so we have the idea of the concept of custom fields, so custom data fields that have basically a Dropbox account or a Google Drive or whatever it is, and they will link in a custom field for the Google Drive of the individual. It's very common in kind of like alumni organizing or some of our like membership or union work that we do. So it's not out of the ordinary, but not something we do natively.
Cool. One from Mary asking, how do you deal with people who already think their website is already great?
That is, if I had the answer to that, Mary. Honestly, data. Data is the king, right? At the end of the day, if you are not, like, look at average time spent on page. If you, Mary, if you have access to whatever analytics tool, most commonly is Google Analytics, you can get really granular on how long people are spending on the page, how many views, unique views does it have, how many revisits does it have. Get really pointed about the data as it pertains to whatever goals you're trying to achieve. And then from there, being able to set forth whatever your agenda is, Mary, as it pertains to the website or a rebuild of a website. Ground it in data. That is my best advice for a very hard question.
Lovely. And just one last question from Patricia. Can we have numerous services to be able to be administrators on a shared website?
Yes. So we have a permission sets concept. So if you, right now I've come into the settings area of this nation, and then within that there are permission sets. And so you can see there's the admin level, but if I go in here to this donor caller permission set, what you're going to see is the granularity. We have extreme granularity on what you can and can't allow people to view or to access. So you'll see that within this permission type, they have barely any access to the people, so that database section. They have no access to a website. They can only create email blasts. They can't send them or manage the email themes or anything like that. They cannot do anything with workflows or finances or settings. And so this is very custom. You can make it what you need within your organization for different permission levels.
And she's also asking, our website is predominantly for information promoting research and results we're doing in the community. So we'll be uploading reports and graphics. Is this possible?
Yes. So if I come back over here, and let's say I want to go to our about page, I would upload in here in the files section, whatever those reports were, the images. And there are two things that you can do with that. One is you can have it be a button, let's say, on your website that is like, just click this and you'll be able to download the report, or you can put it in. I would actually like embed. I would really recommend that you do the link out, because then you can actually get click-through of who's reading and digesting the information. What NationBuilder is not is like a billboard website. Billboards are great, they serve their purpose, but we are really all about action and building community with people. And so it sounds like what you have there is a lot of information for folks to digest, track it, engage, like reach out to those folks. Like if you think about the user journey from it, like what did they get from the research? Are there prompts that you can ask them? And do that from a digital perspective to make your content more engaging would be the conversation that I would kind of get into with you if you were coming to NationBuilder, versus doing like a billboard version on NationBuilder, if that makes sense.
Cool, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for joining us today. And as Saoirse mentioned, we have a digital fundraising webinar coming up next Tuesday, I believe. But check out the websites to sign up for that. And if everybody could take just a few seconds to fill in the survey, that would be really appreciated. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you very much, Saoirse, and we'll see you all next week.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.